Welcome to the Liz Wheeler Show. Don't forget to sign up for my new email newsletter. It's got all the goods in it, all the information that you need. Go to lizwheeler.com/email to sign up for my newsletter. It's got show research, it's got articles, it's got everything that the corporate media doesn't want you to know and everything that big tech censors and doesn't allow us to talk about. Go to lizwheeler.com/email and sign up for my brand new email newsletter. So today we're going to talk about, there's a new documentary out, a new documentary on Amazon. It's called Shiny Happy People. It's about the Duggar family, but a little bit bigger than the Duggar family. It's about the religious cult that they belonged to. And yes, I'm going to call it a cult because I believe that's what it is. This religious cult, they portray themselves as being Christian, and perhaps what they believe is sort of similar to Christianity, but as all cults do, Christianity has been warped in their cult to be something that is not actually Christianity. It's led by a man named Bill Gothard. We talked a little bit about this on the show when one of the Duggar daughters, Ginger Duggar, published a book talking about how she escaped from this cult. Now, it wasn't a physical escape. This was an ideological escape, how she disentangled herself from the heretical theology that was taught and the really destructive, dangerous, weirdo practices of the cult, things that don't have anything to do with religion. You know, we're all familiar with how the Duggars dressed on their show, right? The long skirts, the very long hair. The girls weren't allowed to wear shorts. They didn't let their shoulders show. They have as many kids as they possibly can. Those are just some of the stereotypical things associated with the Bill Gothard cult. These are teachings that Bill Gothard required his followers to practice. This new documentary series, Shiny Happy People, exposes Bill Gothard and exposes this cult. And you're probably like me, you find this pretty interesting. I mean, the Duggars have been public figures in our country for decades now. I remember watching the Duggars growing up just because it was fascinating to see a family with 19 kids. Especially that family, they're kind of interesting people. So this documentary series is lighting up. People are watching it and watching it because they're interested in it, and they're especially interested in the Bill Gothard cult after Ginger Duggar said that she is rejecting it. However, what I want to say right now is we are going to have on this show someone who escaped from the Bill Gothard cult. That episode is going to drop next week, so be sure to subscribe. Be sure to set the notification on YouTube or on Rumble or on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify so that when that episode drops, you don't miss it. A man who escaped the cult is going to tell us what it was like on the inside, how he got away. One of the things, though, about Shiny Happy People is, as the mainstream often does, when there is an instance, this happens not just with Christianity, it happens also with homeschooling. Whenever there's an instance of abuse or warped theology or something bad that's associated with people that claim to be Christians or people that pretend to homeschool, what the left does is instead of just understanding that the abuse that's found within the Bill Gothard cult is not Christian teaching, it is not biblical teaching, it is counter to biblical teaching. Instead, they try to smear all Christians. They try to use this as an indictment of a large family, of a pro-life family, of a Republican family, of a homeschooling family, and of a Christian family. And that is frustrating for those of us who are, well, I was homeschooled, as you guys know. A lot of people that watch this show, I know, homeschool their kids. I'm a practicing Christian. A lot of you guys are practicing Christians. And this is an unfair indictment of what we're dealing with, because the cult of Bill Gothard is exactly that. It is a cult. It is a fringe, a minority group that is not biblical. It's not actually practicing Christianity. But what I want to do today is I want to talk about an actual cult that is running rampant in our country, that these same people who are so obsessed with following the Duggars and using the Duggars as ammunition to try to assassinate the character of all Christians and all homeschooling families, this cult, those same people aren't interested in condemning at all, even though the cult that's bigger, the cult that is touching every part of our lives, from corporate America to our children's classrooms. This video I have to show you of what is happening at one elementary school for Pride Month. This is the real cult. And the leftists, well, they're not interested in talking about it. And maybe for once, it's coming back to bite them. So let's get to it. Okay, guys, let's talk about bank on yourself. Do you really control your retirement money? If you've got a 401k or an IRA or a similar retirement plan, the government actually controls it. They decide how much you can borrow and when you must pay it back, and you'll owe taxes and penalties for taking money out too soon or waiting too long, even though it's your money. And thanks to our skyrocketing national debt and a Congress that continues to spend like a drunken sailor, who knows how much you'll have to pay in taxes during a retirement that could last, 30 years? Let me tell you, bank on yourself is a better way to grow and protect your hard-earned money. This retirement plan alternative has never had a losing year in over 160 years. You are in control. You get access to your money for any purpose with no questions asked and without government penalties or restrictions on how much income you can take or when you can take it. Try doing that with your 401k or IRA. You can't. Bank on Yourself is just a better way. Now you can get a free report with all the details on how the Bank on Yourself strategy adds guarantees, predictability, tax savings, and control to your financial plan. Just go to bankonyourself.com/Liz. That's bankonyourself.com/Liz. Okay, so the actual cult that has taken a hold of our country, and they are behaving like an actual cult, is Pride Month. Pride Month is not about pride in the way that we would describe ourselves as proud to be an American or proud of our families. Pride Month is behaving as a literal cult, and they're coming for our children. And I know this sounds, some people are gonna be like, well, Liz, come on. This is just about celebrating the advances that gay people have made in our country, equality and tolerance and yada, yada, yada. And let me just tell you, watch this video and you can decide for yourself, because this happened at an elementary school in the United States of America in honor of the first day of Pride Month, which the left calls Pride Day. These are children. You can see the ages of these children in this video. Let's go ahead and play this right now. They're entering school. They have no choice but to participate in this Pride celebration. Elementary school children, they are small children, and they are met with teachers and administrators dressed in rainbow-colored uniform onesies, waving pride flags. There's the transgender progress flag, the transgender flag in this elementary school. Look at how small that child is. Those are kindergartners and first graders and second graders, and they are all forced to walk under a rainbow arch. So when I say that this elementary school is forcing children to celebrate Pride Month, I mean that. I'm not saying that to sound bombastic. I'm not saying that to be hyperbolic. Look at those teachers. They are draped in rainbow flags, draped in pride flags. These small children are forced to participate in Pride Month. Understand what Pride Month is. Pride Month is not about the dignity of all human beings. It is not about celebrating equality under the law. It is not about promoting tolerance for alternative lifestyles. Pride Month is underpinned by queer theory. Pride Month is an anti-Christian, anti-biology, anti-science, Marxist ideology. You saw the transgender flag in the hallway of that elementary school. Those small children, some of them don't even have their front teeth, are being taught, you're a boy? Well, you can be a girl if you want to be a girl. You're a girl? Well, maybe you're a boy trapped in a girl's body. Maybe you should go on hormones. Maybe you should surgically mutilate your body. Maybe you should wreck your fertility for life. Maybe you should reject your family. Maybe you should embrace a neo-Marxist ideology because it serves our political agenda. That's what Pride Month is. Pride Month sexualizes children. It's so destructive. It's so disgusting. And here's what I will say. This year, for the first time in the history of Pride Month, because Pride Month is not new, for the first time, the left has crossed the line. Now, I'm not saying in individual instances the left hasn't crossed the line before. Of course they have. But as a whole, for the first time, the left has collectively stepped over a line that the vast majority of the American people are not willing to tolerate. And that is sexualizing our children. That is grooming our children. That is indoctrinating our children. And they're doing this openly. They're doing this without shame. They're doing this, they're admitting that they're doing this, and they're trying to gaslight you if you oppose it. This is a drag queen, and this school is in Canada, but it's still an elementary school. You can see how small the children are in this auditorium. In this auditorium, in this elementary school in Canada, a drag queen performs, and the children, as you can see, participate in this drag performance by clapping and listening. A drag queen. What is a drag queen? A drag queen is a man, a biological man, dressed up in a hypersexualized costume supposed to portray a woman, and not just a woman, but a degrading stereotype of a woman. And look at how small those children are. Those children are so young, they're going to think this is normal. And that's the point of Pride Month. That is what Pride Month is trying to do. They're not, if you ask someone who is part of the LGBTQIA activist crew, if you ask them, well, what rights do gay or lesbian or bi or transgender people not enjoy? Where is the institutional discrimination? What are they not allowed to do that a straight person or a so-called cisgender person is allowed to do? And they can't answer this question. They immediately turn it around and talk about your viewpoints. They talk about how your viewpoints are hateful, your viewpoints are bigoted, and you must be forced to celebrate their ideology, their sexual immorality, and their rejection of objective truth. That is what Pride Month is about. It's not about equality or tolerance or any of those things. It is about forcing you to comply. This is a rapper, and you can contrast this. Actually, one of our producers made this point right before we went on air, and it's a really good point, so I want to share it with you. Last week, we watched the video of the rapper that made a song, that filmed the video inside Target. You remember this? Inside Target, saying this is too far, don't target our children. And this video, this rap, became the most downloaded song on iTunes. It rose to the top of the iTunes charts. Well, contrast that, remembering watching that and how people reacted to that, because we all feel the same way. That's why we're boycotting Target. That's why their stock prices continue to take a nosedive. That's why their stock has actually been downgraded, because they've chosen queer theory over a business. They've chosen to target our children instead of pursuing us as consumers. Contrast that video with this one. This is an all ages pride party. All ages means children are invited, featuring a rapper who is actually singing about gay sex acts in front of children. In front of children. Watch this video very closely.
Yo, let them know who we do this for. For the girls, for the gays, for the fellas and the queens.
You can see this rapper gyrating on the stage at an all-ages drag show. And there's a toddler gyrating and talking about gay sex in front of a toddler. This is what Pride Month is about. This is what Pride Month. In this next video, I will confess to you guys, I wasn't sure whether to show this video or not. This video is so disturbing. This video is it's obscene, actually. It's pornographic. And don't worry, we made the decision to blur it out. And I know I don't often do that because I don't want to be a gatekeeper of information. I want you to have access to what we're talking about, and I don't want to serve as a censor to you. But I know that there are a lot of people who listen to this show with their children around, a lot of people who, well, if you're like me, you don't want to see this image yourself. So we did blur this out. We did pixelate the obscene part. If you're morbidly curious about what it is, I suppose you can go and look it up online. But I think after you see this video, you will agree. You'll thank us for doing this. And a special thanks to our graphics editor, who I'll probably have to pay for therapy for now, because we had to therapy, or at least bleach for his eyes after this. This is an LA, a Los Angeles Pride event, again, for all ages, meaning children are invited to this. It features men actually engaging in gay sexual activity. Not talking about it, not singing about it, not insinuating it, not teaching it, engaging in sexual activity. As you can see, it's beyond obscene. It's beyond disturbing. Even with the pixelated version, you're probably like, oh, thanks a lot, Liz. How do I ever get that image out of my head? This is what Pride Month is about. And for the very first time, the left that sponsors Pride Month, the left that tries to force Pride Month on all of us, has crossed a line. They are actively trying to sexualize our children. They're admitting it, and they're trying to force you to partake in it. Maybe this is actually a good thing. Not good for our children, but maybe this is actually a good thing because it allows the American people to see their true agenda. And when people see their true agenda, they don't like it. When people see their true agenda, they reject it. They reject it, and they should. This is a book that's featured in libraries for children. This is a children's book. It's called Granddad's Pride. We're going to show you this book in just a second, but first I want to talk to you about Goods Candies. So I was in New York City for work this last week, and my husband FaceTimes me while I'm there, and he said, hey, we got a box of candy delivered to our house. Can I eat it? And I was like, sure, I guess so. I don't know who sent it, so eat it at your own risk. And I didn't really think anything else about it until I got home and realized that our brand new sponsor is Goods Candies, and they had sent us samples of their product. And I was like, oh, great, I'll take a look at this. Make sure that it's a good product that I want to endorse, but my husband had eaten it all. So there's your endorsement. This is not your average chocolate shop, Goods Candies. Trust me, when you bite into a Goods Candies creation, you will instantly taste the difference. They have all kinds of flavors like indulgent toffees, salted caramels, and all kinds of chocolates with unique cream centers. Those are my favorites, like raspberry, maple, mint, and orange, just to name a few, to make your mouth water here. Selecting your goodie bag is all part of the fun here. Now, I have two words for you, Father's Day. This isn't really too hard to think about. When you see how much my husband liked these candies, you'll know that they're the perfect gift for the father in your life as well. You can also bring Goods Candies to everywhere you go, maybe your next neighborhood cookout. It's a great old-timey family business, the kind we love to support. And here's the best part. You can receive an exclusive 20% discount on any order from Goods Candies if you use my discount code Liz2023 when you place your order. Valid now until the end of June, so you got to act now. That's goodscandies.com, 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 promo code Liz2023 at checkout for 20% off. So it's not just performances, sexualized performances aimed at children in the name of Pride Month, which is bad enough and should be enough. It's also books. You go into a children's library and you'll pull a book off the shelf that looks like this. This book is called Granddad's Pride. It's about, well, what do you think? It's about propagating the LGBTQIA ideology. But if you look on the inside of this book, look at what it features. The inside of this book features a BDSM couple. Look at that, right there in the middle. Bondage, dominance. That's so disgusting. That's so disgusting. And this is what we're telling children. This is a perverted sexual fetish. This is something that's like a psychological issue. And we're telling children that it's normal. We're telling children that that's what it means. If you don't want to be a homophobe, if you don't want to be a bigot, if you don't want to be a transphobe, you have to embrace that. Pride Month has gone too far. And listen, when I'm putting this show together, I'm sitting here thinking, this is what's happening in public schools. I know I have always been an advocate of homeschooling. I was homeschooled myself. It was a wonderful experience. And that was back when there weren't quite as many homeschooling. Like it was still thought of as like the weirdos were homeschooled back when I was homeschooled. Now, I'd like to think that I'm not too much of a weirdo, but you know, it is what it is. Everybody's a little weird, and maybe compared to pop culture or compared to what pop culture was teaching kids at my time, maybe I am weird compared to that. Maybe that's a good thing. But regardless, I've always been an advocate of parents pulling their children out of public schools and homeschooling if you possibly can, because it's better for your family, it's better for your children, it's better for their education, it's better for their moral formation. You protect them from this kind of stuff. But I think I'm red pilling further on public schools. And this is what I mean. Let me walk you through. So I'm putting this show together today, and I'm thinking, what purpose do public schools actually serve? Like, what is their purpose? So when they were created in our country, it wasn't right at the founding. It was after that. Thomas Jefferson was a proponent of government-funded schools, so public schooling, but it didn't happen for a while after the founding of our country. And then even after there were public schools, it wasn't mandatory until the mid-1800s when laws passed state by state that required parents to send their children to school. And I thought, okay, well, what is the purpose of public school? What are they accomplishing right now? Originally, when they were formed, their purpose was, some people are going to be surprised by this, but their purpose was indoctrination. The purpose wasn't education like reading, writing, and arithmetic. The purpose was to indoctrinate children. The difference between then and now is back then, the indoctrination was indoctrination into American values and, believe it or not, into Christian values, specifically Protestant values. There were a lot of immigrants, many of them Catholic, that were coming to the United States at the time. A lot of our founders were very devout Protestants. They didn't want Catholic theology in their country. There was a time in our country when Catholics were persecuted, and so public schools were intended to indoctrinate children who were maybe first-generation Americans in American values. They didn't want children to be primarily loyal to the country of their parents' origin. They wanted children to understand why the United States government was formed the way that it is and why it's important to protect it. So they wanted to indoctrinate children in Americanism, and they wanted to indoctrinate children in Protestantism. That's not what's happening in schools right now. So we've clearly deviated from the original intent of public schools. So what are we achieving with public schools right now? At least are we achieving education? Are we teaching children how to write? Are we teaching children how to read? Are we teaching them how to think via mathematics, arithmetic? And the answer to that is no, we're not. We lag behind academic achievement on every metric by a long shot when compared with with other countries all around the world, not just westernized nations, but countries all around the world. We lag terribly. The academic achievement in our schools is abysmal. It's embarrassing, especially given how much money we throw at public schools. So it's not American indoctrination. It's not, or Christian indoctrination. It's not achieving any kind of education. Well, is it at least achieving socialization? Are we teaching children how to interact with people, how to operate in a civil society, a society that's supposed to be based via our Constitution on ordered liberty? And the answer to that is no, we're not. Our children are not socialized. They are not adept at anything from manners to the ability to think independently, to the ability to interact with people outside of their peers in this tiny little petri dish of a classroom. We're failing on indoctrination and American values. We're failing on education. We're failing in socialization. So what is the public school system then? Or is it just there to babysit kids so that when moms and dads go to work, they have a place to send their children that's more or less free, that they don't have to pay for childcare, they don't have to pay for private education? The answer to that is, if so, then what are we even doing? Because what's happening in those hours, all those hours when children are at school, is children are being brainwashed and indoctrinated into radical leftist ideologies like queer theory. Queer theory, the neo-Marxist ideology that intends to sexualize children in order to separate the children from their parents, in order to destroy families, in order to destroy civil society. So I'm thinking about, well, what actually is the point of public schools? Not like I said, this is a step further than I've thought before. I've previously thought, well, public schools are a dangerous place for children, so pull your children out of them if you can. It's actually your moral obligation as a parent, if you possibly can, to protect your child from this evil. But I'm now at the point where I'm looking at public schools and I'm wondering, well, what are they even doing? Why do we even have them? Why are we funding them? What are they achieving except for ruining the next generation of children? Maybe we should abolish public schools altogether. Maybe it's time to reset our education system. Maybe it's time to reset our minds, our attitudes about how we educate and indoctrinate and form our children, and who cares for them and who pours information into their brains. Maybe the government has lost their legitimacy in being part of forming the next generation of children. It certainly seems that they have betrayed parents and our country in this role. Maybe it's time to get rid of public schools altogether. In 5 years, the people who right now don't agree with this, the people who think it's too far, maybe you'll catch up. Maybe you'll realize, you know what? It's a lot different than when I went to school. Public school is not the same as when we were just going, we were hanging out with our friends, we were getting homework, we were playing sports. That's not what it is anymore. And if it's not, what are we doing? We're sacrificing our children to the public school system for what? Because we can't acknowledge that an institution has been compromised, an institution that we had a different experience with 30, 40, 50 years ago that has changed. It's been captured. It's not the same as it was anymore, and therefore we shouldn't treat it the same. We shouldn't accept it the same. We shouldn't respect it the same. We shouldn't allow it to exist anymore. Okay, let's talk about Target. So Target evidently not only gave money to a radical LGBTQIA group that actively seeks to hide from parents when their children are quote-unquote transitioning in school, but Target evidently gave money to another radical activist group, of course a leftist group, whose goal it is to abolish Mt Rushmore. Why does Target want to abolish Mt Rushmore? We're going to talk about that in just a second, but first I want to talk to you about Black Forest. If you are watching my show right now, then you know all about the attack on masculinity that our men have faced over the last 10 years or so. Our culture has been praising and promoting the feminization of men. It's all part of their plan. Weak men and weak people are easier to control. Do what we say, not what we do. And don't ask questions. If you speak out, well, then you're a homophobe, a sexist, a misogynist. And the sad part is it's kind of working. Did you know testosterone levels have been declining for decades? So too has grip strength and other measurable counts, the baby-making kind of counts. This research and data is all published online with the National Library of Medicine. We're bombarded by chemicals, unhealthy foods, and backwards mainstream culture, but our new sponsor, Black Forest, is on a mission to help change this. Of course, healthy activities like lifting weights and getting high-quality sleep will help tremendously, but Black Forest has another solution on top of this: Black Forest Terkesterone. Black Forest Terkesterone is a natural anabolic compound that supports muscle growth and improves endurance and increases strength and lean muscle mass and aids in fat loss. It's basically like steroids without the nasty side effects. And for the ladies out there, they've recommended their Black Forest Sustantia tubulosa. It's a natural, non-hormonal supplement that can help improve energy levels, boost the immune system, and support healthy aging. So embrace your strength, gentlemen, and let Black Forest help you get there. Go to blackforestsupplements.com. That's blackforestsupplements.com. Use code Liz10 at checkout for a 10% discount. That's blackforestsupplements.com. So Fox News Digital reports that Target, via its nonprofit foundation, which has been directed by the retail giant's senior corporate treasurers, funded a grantee pushing to shut down and give away U.S. sovereign lands such as Mt Rushmore. And the reason why, this according to Fox News Digital, is believing it to be an intentional symbol of white supremacy. This group also wants to demilitarize the violent U.S. military. And the same grantee also supports the destruction of Israel's Jewish character through what is called the Palestinian Law of Return, and implementing economic warfare tactics against the Jewish state, such as boycotts and sanctions to, quote unquote, free Palestine. That, all according to Fox News Digital. Oh, Target, it's like you don't even want to do business in the marketplace. Here's what I wonder sometimes. Sometimes I think, okay, well, these big corporations that choose to be woke are doing it not because they care the most about their consumer, not because they care the most about their business, but because they care the most about their ESG scores, and they're willing to sacrifice some profit. They're willing not to compete quite as strongly in the marketplace because they'd rather have an ESG score, and maybe they feel coerced into pursuing these ESG scores. That's possible. Certainly true of some corporations. Target seems to be taking it a step further. They seem to be voluntarily complying to the most extreme levels of, well, wokeness. So maybe it's not just forced compliance here. But sometimes I wonder if some of these companies that propagate such Marxism are actually trying to self-destruct. Because think about Marxism. We think about Marxism now in the cultural sense. We think about Marxism like critical race theory. We think about Marxism as in queer theory. We think about how these cultural neo-Marxist ideologies are targeting our civil institutions like law enforcement and our criminal justice system and the family, things that are part of not our governmental institutions, but our civil institutions. But remember, Marxism at its core is an anti-capitalist ideology. That's the original Marxists, Marx and Engels. They wanted a Marxist revolution based on economic grievances. They wanted the ruling class to be overthrown by the working class. The cultural Marxists simply took economic Marxism and adapted it to cultural issues because they realized that workers weren't actually going to revolt against the ruling class. So they adapted it, but at its core, it's still anti-capitalist. You can look at Black Lives Matter, for example. Black Lives Matter is anti-capitalist, and they admit that they're anti-capitalist. The Marxists that admit their Marxism are anti-capitalist. And I wonder sometimes if organizations, corporations like Target aren't just willing to take a small hit in the marketplace in pursuit of an ESG score, but are happy to do that. If they're intentionally running their business into the ground because they want to destroy the free market economy. They don't believe in billionaires. They don't believe in business. They don't believe in free enterprise. They don't even believe in private property. They are communists. They are Marxists. And while we focus on the cultural outgrowth, the poisonous ideology that impacts our family and our children, and we ought to focus on that, I wonder if we're missing the point that some of these companies have a death wish in the marketplace, a marketplace death wish. Because after all, they are anti-capitalist. The Satanist who designed Pride merchandise for Target is blasting Target now, criticizing Target for removing his merchandise from both the website and many of Target's stores. The designer's name is Eric Carnell. This is what Eric Carnell said. He said, it's a very dangerous precedent to set that if people just get riled up enough about the products that you're selling, you can completely distance yourself from the LGBT community when and if it's convenient. He said, if you're going to take a stance and say that you care about the LGBT community, you need to stand by that regardless. So this is what I mean when I said before that Pride Month this year for the first time, it's so obscene, it's so egregious, it's certainly crossed a line that it's never crossed before, sexualizing our children, grooming our children, exposing our children to just pornography, and pretending that if you are a parent who opposes that you are bigoted, that you are hateful, that you're transphobe, that you contribute to the suicide rate of the LGBTQIA community. This absolute gaslighting, these lies, they're really hideous lies too, because of what the accusations are. But Eric Carnell, the Satanist designer, proves again that Pride Month is not about tolerance, it's not about equality. You have to actually stock Satanist designed merchandise aimed at children, or else you are anti-LGBTQ. I'd be interested in what the majority of gay and lesbian people in our nation think of this, because it seems to me that this is antithetical to what most people with same-sex attraction believe about equality under the law. Most people, I would venture to say, and maybe most gay and lesbian people are too afraid to speak up because they don't want to be ostracized. I don't know. But it would be interesting to hear what the majority of non-political activists, the majority of people who are gay, who are non-political activists, think about the idea that if you don't stock Satanist design merchandise aimed at grooming children in queer theory, that you are anti-gay. It seems to me that gay and lesbian people are actually being hijacked in pursuit of the transgender ideology, which is, of course, queer theory. But by the way, what Eric Carnell says, that Target caved and that Target is distancing themselves from the LGBT community, isn't even true. Journalist Greg Price, obtained, and I'm going to bring this up on the screen, obtained an internal email from Target that they sent to their employees yesterday, on June 5th, that actually requests that they take part in so-called Pride Week. You can read this on the screen. Part of some of the activities that employees are encouraged to participate in are queer bingo and board games. Pride Plus Culture Club presents How to Be a Better Ally. You can attend that. And Pride Plus Pro Sports Panel. Well, so much for Target distancing themselves from the LGBTQIA agenda. They certainly are not. There's a priest by the name of Father James Martin who wrote an article answering the question, or attempting to answer the question, can Catholics celebrate Pride Month? Now, this, by the way, does not apply just to Catholics. This can be easily adapted to, can Christians celebrate Pride Month? And I want to read you just a little bit of what he writes. Let me bring this up. His title is, Can Catholics Celebrate Pride Month? And his answer is yes, and here's why. He said, can Catholics celebrate Pride Month when the LGBTQ community marks its place in society? Can Catholics celebrate the series of events that take place in June during what is now often simply called Pride? Can they do this when Pride is one of the traditional 7 deadly sins? Isn't it wrong to show pride? First, he says, it's important to remember that there are at least 2 kinds of pride. The first is the satisfaction that can come from your own accomplishments. This can turn into vanity, which is something to avoid. That brand of pride says, look at how great I am. It's the opposite of humility, a key virtue in the Christian life. Humility reminds us that we are not the center of the universe and that our lives depend on God. This is the kind of humility that Jesus speaks of in the Beatitudes when he says, blessed are the poor in spirit. So the first kind of pride can be a threat to humility, to discipleship, and to the spiritual life overall. But the second kind of pride is a consequence of one's own dignity. And that's closer to what Pride Month is meant to be for the LGBTQ community, a recognition of the human dignity of a group of people who have, for centuries, been treated with contempt, rejection, and violence. And by the way, guys, let me just interject here, a little spoiler alert. This priest is wildly off base. This priest is this close to preaching heresy. He actually specializes in walking that line where he crafts what he says in a way that makes it difficult to say, this is the heresy. But let me just tell you, he's 100% morally wrong. And he's doing this in a very deceptive way. He is actually acting exactly as the Marxists do by redefining a word. I'll show you. He says, for the religious person, this month is also a reminder that LGBTQ people are beloved children of God. Pride Month reminds Catholics to treat LGBTQ people with the respect, compassion, and sensitivity that the Catechism demands, the closeness, compassion, and tenderness that Pope Francis has taught, and the love and mercy that Jesus showed to all people, especially those on the margins during his public ministry. It's especially important This priest says, for churches to mark Pride Month, since much of the rejection that LGBTQ people have faced has been motivated by Christianity, at least what many people think Christianity teaches. So let's just address a couple of things. It is true that Christianity teaches us to be loving and to be compassionate and to be charitable towards people with same-sex attraction. That's 100% true. But here's where we have the redefinition of words. What is love? What is charity? What is compassion? What is acknowledging someone's dignity? Now, we talked about this on the show yesterday. It does not make you a good person to indulge a delusion by using a man's quote-unquote preferred pronouns if he asks to be called she, her when he is a biological man. It is not polite. It is not kind. It does not make you a good person. It is not a social convention that you must adhere to indulge that delusion. In fact, it makes you the opposite of a good person. It is harmful. It is wrong. It's degrading in order to indulge delusion, especially when that delusion leads to pharmaceutical interventions, abuse of drugs against your body, and surgery that mutilates your body and your fertility and your sexuality, and that disassociates you from the embodiment of your spirit, your body being the embodiment of your soul. This is where Father Martin deliberately or willfully, I don't believe that he's a stupid person, so I'm going to assume that he is willfully misunderstanding the definition of pride. He knows that Pride Month, as defined by the left, who created Pride Month is not simply about getting the church to welcome LGBTQIA people into their pews and say, listen, we love you, but your activities, your behavior, your sexual activities are not in line with biblical morality. You're welcome here. We love you, and we want what's best for you in line with what God wants for you, with who God made you. That's not what the left means when they celebrate Pride Month. What the left means is everything that we just talked about in the show. What the left means by Pride Month is indoctrinating children with queer theory, is gay sex acts happening on the back of a truck in Los Angeles at an all-ages drag show, a rapper on stage rapping about gay sex acts in front of a baby, a transgender progress pride flag at an elementary school that forces children to participate in an ideology that specifically rejects biblical morality. Father James Martin is not a stupid person. He's wrong about how Christians and Catholics should treat LGBTQIA identifying people, and he's misleading Christians. He's misleading Catholics. So the answer to the question, can Catholics and can Christians celebrate Pride Month? The answer to that is no. No, they can't. Because Pride Month is not about equality. It's not about tolerance. It's certainly not about the dignity of these human beings who are being abused by themselves and by others and by society and by politics into believing that there's something wrong with their bodies, that they should cut off their breasts and their genitals, that they should present themselves as someone not who God created them to be, but someone else derived from a neo-Marxist ideology, a Marxist ideology, which, by the way, Father, I will remind you that Catholic teaching defines Marxism and communism as a satanic ideology. Father James Martin's superiors ought to know better than to let him propagate this kind of borderline heresy that is certainly harming Christians all across the country. But make no mistake, if his superiors refuse to do so, we're not going to let him get away with misleading Christians, because that would be the opposite of a loving thing to do. Okay, so Vice President Mike Pence, or former Vice President Mike Pence, is going to announce that he's running for president. It's funny, isn't it, to see all these different candidates jump into the race when you wonder, who exactly does Mike Pence think his constituency is? Who does he think is going to vote for him? President Trump supporters don't like him. President Trump supporters, by and large, think that Mike Pence betrayed them. The left has always despised Mike Pence for his conservative, evangelical, religious views. I'm not sure who Mike Pence thinks is going to vote for him unless he's deliberately trying to. I mean, he couldn't even be a spoiler because we're not talking about the general election. But let me tell you how I analyze each of these candidates, these Republican candidates, as they enter the race. If you look at the candidates through this lens or through this viewpoint, it makes what they're doing a little bit more fun to watch. So I asked myself a couple of questions about each candidate. The first question is, can this candidate win? And we'll just answer these as we go. So can Mike Pence win? Now, the answer to that question is no, Mike Pence can't win, obviously. Obviously not. So what is he doing? Well, that brings us to the second question, does he have a book deal? or perhaps a business that he is wanting to promote, and this is just the easiest way to promote that, to be on a national public platform? The answer to that question is not that I know of. I mean, he wrote a book already, and he already went on a book tour as sort of his pre-announcement tour. So I don't think that that he is doing this just to promote a business and just to promote a book. So the third question is, okay, well, if he can't win and he's not doing this to promote a material good, he's not doing this for a profit, is he doing this because he's sucking up for a role in the administration of the eventual Republican nominee who hopefully will become the next president of the United States? The answer to that with Mike Pence seems no. He was vice president. He's not going to want to serve in any role that's lower than vice president. Obviously, he only wants to serve in the one role that's higher than that, president. So the fourth question then, if he can't win and he doesn't have a book deal or a business and he's not sucking up to be placed in the administration of the eventual Republican president, then is he just delusional? Is he actually deluded himself into believing that he has a shot, or that he has a constituency, or that he has voters? Listen, Mike Pence is a nice man. Mike Pence is a good man. Mike Pence is a good husband, and he's a good father, and I assume a good grandfather. Everyone who ever interacts with Mike Pence only has kind things to say. In fact, I will tell you a story about Mike Pence. On my daughter's first birthday, I was speaking at an event right after Mike Pence. I didn't see him in the green room, but my daughter was with my husband in a separate green room. Mike Pence came into that room. He came over to my husband, introduced himself to my daughter, and drew her a cartoon picture for her first birthday. Super sweet thing to do. Very nice man, very sincere man, very genuine man. But is he delusional about whether he can win the presidency? I think that the answer to that is yes. Highly recommend you use these 4 questions when analyzing every single candidate who is, this is not just Republicans, by the way, this is also Democrats. Every single candidate who declares their, or throws their hat into the ring in the primary, ask these 4 questions. Can this candidate win? Does this candidate have a book deal or a business that they're trying to promote? Is this candidate sucking up for an administration position, or is this candidate just delusional? I promise every candidate will fit into one of those 4 boxes. And the verdict on Mike Pence is ding, ding, ding. He fits into the 4th box. I think he might just be delusional in this case. All right, guys, make sure that you sign up for my email newsletter. Go to lizwheeler.com/email. Drop me your email address. The newsletter it's a fun thing so far. It's a fun new way for us to be connected, for me to send you the information that I come across in the course of my research that, censored oftentimes on big tech. This is a way that I can directly get it to you, especially as we face so much censorship. Well, specifically in this case, I'm thinking about YouTube, but it's not exclusive to YouTube all the time. lizwheeler.com/email. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show. If you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button below, and ring the bell to make sure you never miss a video.